All right, so over here we have this on Discord as well, but this is what you're worried about right here is the bandages. What types of bandages, what they're good against, so efficiency and reopening. So the efficiency is how well they're able to bandage or how many of them you would typically need to bandage a certain type of wound, and then their reopening chance. So elastic is obviously the best, but it reopens very easily. We have morphine, epinephrine. Those are the two you guys should probably be paying attention to for the first aid portion. This is not Delta training. This is just first aid. So morphine is going to lower your blood pressure. It's going to lower your heart rate, and it's going to suppress your pain. So that's something you don't want to happen unless you absolutely need it. Your heart rate can go down to just around 40 and maybe into the high 30s before you would go unconscious. You're going to hear your heartbeat. But we have painkillers that you can use instead. So if you give yourself morphine in the field because you're in pain, always give yourself an epinephrine and make sure that you don't put it on a limb that has a tourniquet on it. If you have a tourniquet on, nothing's going to go in there. You can give yourself an IV and then give yourself plasma, saline, blood, whatever, and you're not going to receive any of it because you have a tourniquet on. The effect is blood pressure is raised from saline, plasma, and blood. Now, because of Ace Pharmacy, plasma is also going to build up the ability to be able to clot your own wounds. We have tier 4, 3, 2, and 1. Tier 4 is dead or expected to be dead soon. So that's like somebody steps on an IED and they have like 15 wounds, 20 wounds on every single limb. You're not going to be able to save that guy. If everything's completely red and each limb you click on says it has 15 wounds, stop. You're just going to waste your supplies. Tier 3 is minor, so that's you being conscious. You're hit, you're still awake, you don't go unconscious. You can tourniquet that limb, or if you're bandaged on your head and chest, take cover, bandage that up, return fire. Tier 2 is delayed, so that's somebody that's severely injured, unconscious, multiple bandaged wounds. So tier 2 means that person's already been treated. They're still unconscious, but they've been treated. Tier 1 is immediate, so that's somebody that is injured, unconscious, and has not been treated yet. So if you come up to somebody that just went down and they're badly injured, they're going to be tier 1. That means you're going to have to put the tourniquets on their limbs, patch up the bleeding on the chest and head, and then hopefully be able to get a medic to get over there and start stitching while you assist in whatever you need to do. Whether it's the medic ends up having it covered by at that point, then they end up telling you to just go pull security, or if the person's gravely injured, but you might be able to save them, so then you might need to assist him with medical, as long as you have individuals on security. Security is really important. If you don't have Delta training, and the Delta needs somebody that has knowledge of being able to do this, then you're not going to be able to help with that. You're better off just sitting on security. Splints can be used to heal broken bones on limbs. So if you get a broken bone or a fracture on one of your legs, you won't be able to run or move at a normal pace because you'll have a fracture. If you put a splint on it, you'll be able to move at a normal pace, but you will not be able to sprint. To be able to sprint, you actually have to have a Delta perform surgery on your fracture, whether it's a simple fracture, a comminuted fracture, or a compound fracture. A simple fracture they can take care of with you being awake. Comminuted and compound, they have to put you under. Stabilization is often required before packs and surgical kits can be used. So stabilization is basically making sure that wherever a person can bleed, they're no longer bleeding from. So you can get a person stable with tourniqueting their arms and their legs and just bandaging their head and chest, because then you stop the bleeding. At that point, you can put a fast IO in their chest if you need and start pushing fluid in them. If an individual has lost a fatal amount of blood, they're more than likely not going to have a heart rate. If they lost a large amount of blood, they may still have a heart rate, but if they don't, you can give them CPR and they'll end up having a heart rate again. Now, typically, when a person is unconscious and they have no heart rate, a timer starts. That's 10 minutes. 10 minutes for you to get their heart going again, whether it's natural heartbeat or a forced heartbeat with a CPR. So if you do CPR, and when you're doing CPR, that's making their heart beat. So if their heart doesn't keep beating after you stop CPR, you still had it beating when you were giving them CPR, so that resets the timer. So you have another 10 minutes to be able to get them back up. Keep that in mind. But
So you only need to do CPR once every 10 minutes then, just to reset the clock,
in the
essentially.
game,
In game, yeah.
in real life, you have to keep doing CPR.
Sure, yeah. No, I get that.
Um, so if you're asked to do CPR by the Delta, do the CPR. Try to get the guy's heart rate back, because then you can stay unconscious for any amount of time as long as you at least have a heart rate. But if you don't have a heart rate, there's a timer to where you perma die, and that's 10 minutes. Tier 4 casualties ragdoll. So individuals that get dropped, they ragdoll down. We have a ragdoll mod. You'll see the ragdoll. They flop down to the ground. However, AI do have the ability to go unconscious. So once they hit the ground, you may see them transition into an animation. So if you see them transition into an animation, headshot. Shoot them in the head. Don't waste a whole clip trying to shoot them in the body. Right now, the medical settings haven't been changed, but they will soon. For the time being, you have to shoot contacts in the head to permanently kill them. No more than one morphine every 10 minutes. Morphine lasts for 5 minutes. Epinephrine only lasts for 180 seconds. So morphine lasts longer than epinephrine. So if you hit yourself with a morphine, you have to take an epinephrine immediately after in case you need to suppress pain. You'll hear your heart again after the epinephrine wears off, but you should be stable. So don't waste all your epi trying to get rid of that, that heartbeat sound. You'll be fine. Just inform anybody in case you do go down. Ignore the stable unconscious casualties need morphine. You'll deal with that once they're awake. Remove tourniquets within 5 minutes. So if tourniquets are on for 5 minutes and you haven't removed them, you will slowly start to increase in pain. So you'll be in mild pain. You leave them on there longer, then you'll be in pain and then severe pain. Severe pain is where you got the white flashing screen. So if you're in combat and you put a tourniquet on your arm because you got shot, don't take the tourniquet off just because you bandage it. Tourniquets do not come off at all unless the wounds have been stitched. Because you only take a certain amount of fluids out in the field, everybody can only carry so much. So if the Delta has not stitched the wound, leave the tourniquet on in case it reopens. That way you don't lose blood and nobody notices. Tourniquets interfere with taking blood pressure and heart rate. So always check for a person's heart rate and blood pressure at their neck, their head. If Tier 3, use tourniquets and morphine while in contact to stabilize rather than fully treating yourself. So like I said, if you get shot in the arm, slap a tourniquet on, don't bother bandaging it. If you're in severe pain, you can't shoot straight, take some morphine and an epi, and then start returning fire. Once the firefight is done, then you can get treated. But always make sure that you're behind cover. All right. We're going to move on to the dummy here. Who wants to be the first person to go through this?
I've done this before, so I'll volunteer.
Well, you've already done it.
Okay.
I'll do it.
All right, let's get her go through it. All right. So for all deltas that'll be watching this video, we're just going to look at this box down here, scroll wheel, and we're going to create a patient. Going to create one patient. Spawn. He's going to flop. Now, everybody can go into an unconscious state. There is no death upon a certain number of wounds to the body parts, only the head. So all these AI are going to be unconscious. When it changes, you'll have some AI that just immediately die. But he transitioned into an animation. And the goal here is the process, and the process is tourniquet the limbs first, then treat head and chest. A lot of these wounds are pretty small. You can bandage them as quickly as you put tourniquets on. We're not worried about you being able to bandage the guy up super quick. We're worried about teaching people the process. And the process is, if you're out in the field, you're going to have guys that go unconscious because they're going to have a lot of wounds. So then you want to tourniquet the limbs that are bleeding, and then bandage the head and chest. And you'll get a delta over there. The delta can stitch, and then you can take care of the other parts. You never take tourniquets off until the individual is stitched. Now, you need people to say lost some blood for them to be able to wake back up on their own, and their heart rate has to be above 80. So Gator, go ahead and check his pulse.
No heart rate.
Okay, so then you will go to his chest, his
CPR.
torso, click advanced treatments, and then click CPR. Nobody should check for his pulse while you're doing CPR.
Okay. I think he just woke up.
Yeah, he did. All right, go ahead and re-bandage his head. Is anybody in here a Delta? Is that Dangus?
Yeah, I think Dingus.
Dangus, can you come over here and stitch him?
Stitching. 20 seconds.
A key difference to keep in mind for this training is we all carry 4
Stitched.
tourniquets. And when you treat somebody, you always use their medical supply first.
That
So-
automatic.
Just automatic. You always
Okay.
use their medical supplies first. So when you put tourniquets on, it's their tourniquets. So you don't remove their tourniquets unless you absolutely have to.
Gotcha.
Because then you're taking their tourniquets and sticking
Yes.
them in your inventory. Okay.
Yes. But for these AI, they don't have an inventory. They don't have anything on them. So when you're training people in medical here, you have to inform them that these AI do not have anything in their inventory medical-wise at all. So the tourniquets being used on them is for the person that's going through the training. So always before having them do triage for mass cas, you want to make sure that they go to that first aid loadout over there. The box, just go to the arsenal on it and be the other interaction. You can actually use an arsenal
Just scroll
on it.
wheel on. Oh.
It has an arsenal. The only thing in this arsenal is medical supplies. So you'll be able to come in here and grab spare tourniquets before you begin. All right, so I am going to change your loadout there, Gator.
Okay.
All right, Gator. So you treated him. So we want to tourniquet the limbs, then bandage head and chest. Then you can get a Delta to come over and stitch his head and chest. And then you can continue bandaging if there isn't a pulse. That's where the Delta is going to take over and telling
Okay.
you what you need to do to assist him, right? But there could be a scenario when you're out in the field and the Delta's actually the guy down. You're not going to be able to stitch him. Then what do you do?
I mean, you would what? You would make sure that all the bleeding stopped and he's stable, right? And then try to wake him up.
Right. So you would leave the tourniquets on. You're not going to waste your time trying to bandage the limbs. The only
Okay.
thing you're gonna make sure tourniquets are on them, but then you're gonna bandage his head and chest, get his fluid levels up, make sure his heart rate's above 80, and that it at least says lost some blood.
Okay.
And then he should be able to wake up on his own, and then you'll be able to just let him treat himself.
Is there a way to wake him up faster?
If you have ammonium carbonate.
Alright.
So if you look at him and you click
like-
on his head, you should see under medication ammonium carbonate. I'm not sure if you can see it right now, but you will see it if he's unconscious.
Okay, all I see is naloxone.
You don't have carbonate. I do. It's there.
So that'll be something only Deltas can do. Other than that, if he's unconscious, if he says lost some blood and his heart rate is above 80, you'll be able to click his head, click on medication, and you should be able to reorient patient. And that's just slapping him across the fucking face.
Okay.
You may
Yeah,
have
you've
to do it a
slapped me a
couple of
lot.
times, but you'll be able to get him up.
Okay.
What we're going to do now is have everybody back up. So for training for first aid, what we want to do for people that are doing first aid training is give them a max of 3 individuals to do mass cas on. For Delta training, they'll have a max of 6. We used to do upwards of 10, 13 guys down on the ground for Deltas. We just want to keep it realistic. We want to keep it short, not take up too much fucking time and have medical training take a fucking hour. So it's just going to be for people that are doing first aid, 3 individuals for them to triage, and for Deltas, it's going to be 6. Are you ready? You got extra tourniquets ready?
Yeah, I just grabbed him.
All right, how many you got?
18.
That's more than enough.
All right, so now I'm going to look at the box down here. I'm going to scroll wheel down to create multiple patients and click it once, and you'll get 3 guys. If I scroll down and click it again immediately after, you'll get 6. So all you're worried about is tourniqueting the limbs, bandage their head and chest, get the Delta over there, then move on to the next patient. Once all of them are stable, then you can go through treating each one until they're conscious.
Alright, Delta.
All I'm doing is stitching for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stitches are done on that one.
Delta. Fuck. And Delta. Do you want me to start managing? Oh, you're ready.
Pick one and get them back to full.
They're all awake, aren't they?
Yep, but you still have to bandage the rest of their limbs and get him to stitch those.
Oh, I thought you stitched them.
You got to take the tourniquets off.
So I'm only able to stitch wounds that you guys have already like bandaged.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and turned
okay.
blue. So
Gotcha.
anything you left yellow won't be.
Now, the acceptable pain is in pain. In mild pain is less than in pain, so he's good.
Okay.
But what we're considering a pass is if the individual says lost some blood, he's conscious, he's at minimum in pain, and all the tourniquets are off and bandages, or and all
Okay,
the
he's ready
wounds
to
have been
stitch.
stitched.
Yeah, he's good. So in mild pain's less than in pain.
Yep.
Okay.
Why it's referred to as mild pain.
This guy's in. He needs stitched.
Okay.
This guy's in pain. Do you want me to do something?
Pain is fine.
Okay.
If they're in severe pain, then you'd want to take care of it. In pain is fine. All right. Who's next? Who else
I can go.
needs to go through it?
Do I need it? I don't think I do.
Stonewall need to go through it.
I can check.
Sorry,
Drive.
I went through it a month or two ago.
Yeah, you're signed off on it. All right. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question for G-Man. It's not related though.
All right. So if a person's heart rate is really low, there's a couple of things that can be causing their heart rate to be low. Low blood pressure is going to give you a low heart rate. So you don't have to necessarily give them any drugs like phenylpheniphine or norepinephrine. You could just give them epi to get them back to conscious, or just let their fluids build up when you're giving them fluids. You can give them a fast IO or an IV. IVs go in the limbs, fast IO goes in the torso. Fast IO causes pain, and it could mess with somebody's heart rate, so always remember to take the fast IO out. Whether it's the person who put it in, or it's the individual who has it in, they can take it out when they become conscious. So if you have somebody that's down, you want to get them up, their heart rate's low, but they lost a lot of blood or some blood, you can jack them up with epi. You can give them one, give them two. Don't give them too much though. Just give them one, see where their heart rate ends up at, and then you can probably give them another one after it peaks if it's not high enough for them to be conscious.